The rain pounded the pavement like a warning. Each drop a heartbeat in the dark New York City alley where I stood. Frozen, staring down the barrel of a silenced pistol. His name was Elias, the man holding it, and his eyes cold as the steel in his hand betrayed nothing but duty. 3 hours ago, I'd laughed off a billionaire's ultimatum, and now death was knocking at midnight. My name is Jamie Carter, 26, a nobody from Brooklyn with dreams too big for my bank account. I'm a painter, or at least I try to be, scraping by on commissions for rich folks who think art is just decor. That's how I met Vincent Caldwell, the billionaire who turned my world upside down. He didn't just want my painting, she wanted me. Not my heart, not my soul, but my name on a marriage certificate, signed and sealed to save his empire. Marry me, or else, he'd said, his voice smooth as silk, eyes glinting with a threat I didn't take seriously. I should have known better. Men like Vincent don't make empty promises. The alley smelled of wet concrete and desperation. Elias hadn't spoken since he cornered me here, his presence a silent demand for answers I didn't have. You don't have to do this, I said, my voice shaking but defiant. You're not his puppet. His jaw twitched. Just a flicker. But it was enough to tell me he wasn't as heartless as he seemed. Or maybe I was just desperate to believe that. It started 3 months ago, at one of those glittering Manhattan galas where I was just the hired help, there to unveil a mural for Vincent's latest charity stunt. He was 42, all sharp suits and sharper smiles, the kind of man who owned every room he walked into. I'd heard the rumors: ruthless CEO, secretive bachelor, a fortune built on tech and secrets, but I didn't care. I was there for the paycheck, not his life story. Then he stopped in front of my mural, a chaotic swirl of colors depicting freedom, and said, "You see the world differently, Jamie. I like that." His gaze lingered too long, not on the art, but on me. I should have walked away then. Instead, I let him draw me in. Dinners at places I couldn't afford. Late-night talks about art and dreams. His charm disarming me until I forgot who he was. Vincent wasn't just rich, was power incarnate. A man who bent the world to his will. And he wanted me. Not as a lover, but as a chess piece in a game I didn't understand. His proposal came last week. Over champagne in his penthouse. The city skyline glittering like a trap. "Marry me," he said, "and you'll have everything. Refuse, and you'll lose more than you can imagine." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. He didn't laugh back. Now, Elias lowered the gun slightly, his eyes searching mine. "He gave you a choice," he said, his voice low, almost regretful. "You didn't take it." I stepped closer, reckless, my heart pounding. "And you? What's your choice?" "Elias. Kill me for him." He didn't answer, but the silence was loud enough. I'd seen him before. Always in Vincent's shadow, a bodyguard, a fixer, a ghost who moved without sound. But tonight, in this alley, he was real, and so was the crack in his armor. I wasn't always this bold. Growing up in Brooklyn, I learned to keep my head down, especially after I came out at 16 and my dad kicked me out. Art became my refuge, colors my language when words failed. I painted to survive, to make sense of a world that didn't want me. Meeting Vincent felt like a chance to belong somewhere bigger. But it was a lie. He didn't love me, he needed me to secure a merger. A fake marriage to appease investors who questioned his stability. I was just collateral. Elias shifted, the gun still in his hand, but no longer aimed at my chest. "You don't know what you're up against," he said, his voice softer now. almost pleading. Vincent doesn't lose. I swallowed hard, rain dripping down my face. Then why are you hesitating? I asked. He didn't answer, but his eyes told me what his words wouldn't. He was trapped. 2. That night, I didn't die. Elias let me go, disappearing into the rain like a phantom. But I knew it wasn't over. Vincent's world was a machine, and I'd just thrown a wrench into it. I stumbled back to my tiny apartment. The city's hum a distant roar in my ears. My phone buzzed Vincent's name on the screen. Last chance. Jamie. His voicemail said. Calm but chilling. Marry me. Or next time. Elias won't hesitate. I deleted the message, my hands trembling. I wasn't going to be his pawn, but I wasn't naive enough to think I could outrun him. Vincent Caldwell owned half of New York, and I was just a painter with a stubborn streak. But there was something else, Elias. The way he looked at me, the crack in his cold facade. He wasn't just Vincent's weapon. He was a man. And maybe, just maybe, he was as lost as I was. I sank onto my couch, staring at the half-finished canvas across the room. It was a portrait of Elias, started weeks ago after I caught him watching me at one of Vincent's events. His eyes, sharp and haunted, stared back from the canvas, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. I picked up my brush, the familiar weight grounding me. If Vincent wanted a war, I'd fight it my way with colors, with truth, with the kind of courage that doesn't come from money or power. The city never sleeps, and neither did I that night. I painted until dawn, Elias's face taking shape under my hands, each stroke a defiance, a promise. Vincent thought he could control me, but he didn't know me. And Elias, he was the wild card, the one piece of this game Vincent couldn't predict. I wasn't sure if he was my enemy or my ally, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about fighting for who I was, who I loved, and the life I deserved. The morning after Elias let me go, New York woke up like nothing had happened. The sun cut through my apartment's grimy windows, painting stripes across the canvas of Elias's half-finished portrait. But the city's indifference couldn't erase the weight of Vincent's threat or the memory of Elias's hesitation. I didn't go to my studio that day. Instead, I holed up in my apartment, the deadbolt locked, my phone off. Vincent's voicemail played on a loop in my mind. Next time, Elias won't hesitate. But Elias had hesitated, and that crack in his loyalty was my only leverage. I needed to understand why. Who was he to Vincent? A hired gun. Sure. But there was something deeper. Something personal in the way he'd looked at me. Like he was fighting his own war. By noon, I was pacing, my sketchbook open to a drawing of Vincent's penthouse, where he'd proposed his insane deal. The memory was vivid, his sleek, modern empire of glass and steel. The city sprawled below like a kingdom he owned. He'd poured me champagne, his smile all charm, but his words were a blade. My investors need a stable image, he'd said. A husband, a family, someone like you, Jamie, with your heart-on-sleeve art and your Brooklyn grit. Marry me, and you'll never worry about money again. I'd laughed, thinking he was drunk or joking. Then his smile vanished, and I saw the real Vincent, a man who didn't ask, only demanded. I needed answers, but going to Vincent was suicide. Elias was my only lead. I'd seen him at enough of Vincent's events to know he was more than muscle. He moved like a shadow, always watching, always listening. Once, at a gallery opening, I caught him staring at one of my paintings, a raw, abstract piece about isolation. He'd lingered longer than Vincent. His expression unreadable but intense. Like he saw something in the colors I hadn't meant to reveal. I grabbed my laptop and searched for anything on Elias. No last name. No social media. Nothing. He was a ghost. Just like Vincent wanted. But there was one place I could start, the gala where I'd first seen him. It was hosted by Vincent's company, Caldwell Enterprises, a tech giant with fingers in everything from AI to real estate. The guest list was public, splashed across society pages. I scanned the photos, my heart racing when I spotted him in the background of Oni Tall. Lean figure in a black suit. Eyes fixed on Vincent. No name. But the caption mentioned security detail. That was my in. I couldn't stay locked in my apartment forever. Vincent would come for me again. And I needed to be ready. By dusk, I was on the subway, heading to a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen where I knew artists and low-level fixers hung out. If Elias was Vincent's shadow, someone had to know something about him. The bar was a haze of cigarette smoke and cheap whiskey. The kind of place where secrets were currency. I slid into a booth, ordered a beer, and started asking questions. A guy named Marco, a photographer with a rap sheet, knew the type of people Vincent hired. Caldwell's got a whole network, he said, leaning in close. His breath sour. Ex-military. Ex-cops. Guys who don't ask questions. His main guy, though, some dude named Elias. Word is, he's been with Vincent for years. Loyal to a fault. I pressed him for more. But Marco shook his head. You don't cross guys like that, kid. They don't just kill you, they erase you. I left the bar with more questions than answers. But Marco's words stuck, loyal to a fault. Why? Then, had Elias let me go? I walked home under the city's neon glow, my mind spinning. Vincent's world was a maze of power and control. But Elias was the key to unraveling it. I just had to find him before Vincent did. Back in my apartment, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, just a single line in sharp, precise handwriting, stop digging, or I can't protect you. My blood ran cold. Elias. It had to be him. But protect me from what? Vincent. Or something worse. I locked the door again, my heart pounding. The note was a warning. But it was also proof Elias wasn't just Vincent's weapon. He was playing his own game. I turned back to my canvas. Elias's portrait staring at me. I added a new stroke. A shadow across his jaw, mirroring the one I'd seen in the alley. Painting him felt like understanding him, piece by piece. He wasn't just a killer, he was a man caught in Vincent's orbit. Just like me. But unlike me. He'd been there for years, tethered by something I didn't yet understand. That night, I dreamed of the alley, of Elias's gun pressed to my chest, his eyes searching mine. But in the dream, he didn't walk away. He lowered the gun and kissed me, fierce and desperate, like he'd been holding back for years. I woke up gasping, the city's hum outside my window grounding me. It was a dream, nothing more, but it left me shaken. Elias was dangerous, but he was also human, and that humanity was my only hope. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Jamie. Vincent's voice purred through the line, smooth and deadly. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Meet me tomorrow, or Elias won't be so kind next time. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. Vincent wasn't giving up, and Elias was still his weapon for now. I needed a plan. I couldn't fight Vincent's money or power, But I could fight for the truth. Elias was my way in. And whether he was friend or foe, I had to find him. I grabbed my sketchbook, jotting down every detail I remembered about him, the way he moved, the scars on his knuckles, the flicker of doubt in his eyes. If I was going to survive this, I needed to know who Elias really was and what he wanted. Vincent's call left me rattled, but I wasn't going to wait for his next move. New York's streets buzzed with life, indifferent to the storm brewing in my world. I had to find Elias before Vincent sent Heimer someone worse to finish what he started. I started at the only place I knew Elias might show up, Caldwell Enterprises headquarters. A glass monolith in Midtown that screamed wealth. I didn't have a plan, just a sketchbook and a stubborn streak. The lobby was all marble and security. But I'd been here before, delivering paintings for Vincent's office. I flashed my old artist pass, praying it still worked. The guard barely glanced at it, waving me through. Step 1, don't get caught. Vincent's office was on the top floor, a fortress of privacy. I didn't expect to find Elias there, but I hoped for something to file. A name, anything to tell me who he was. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. My reflection in the mirrored walls showing a guy who looked more scared than he wanted to admit. I wasn't a hero. I was just Jamie, the kid who painted his way out of pain. The office was empty. Vincent's desk a sleek slab of mahogany under a wall of windows. Papers were neatly stacked, but nothing screamed assassin's dossier. I rifled through drawers, finding contracts, financial reports, and a photo of Vincent shaking hands with some senator. Then, in a locked drawer I pried open with a letter opener, I found it, a single page. Typed. No letterhead. Elias Kane. Ex-Special Forces. Loyalty secured 2015. Debt, $2. 3M. My stomach dropped. A debt. Was that what tied Elias to Vincent? I snapped a photo of the page with my phone, my hand shaking. Footsteps echoed in the hall, and I ducked behind the desk, heart pounding. The door opened, and I held my breath. It was Elias. He moved like a predator, scanning the room, his eyes landing on the open drawer. Come out, Jamie, he said, his voice low but firm. I know you're here. I stood, my hands raised, feeling like a kid caught stealing. I just want answers, I said. His jaw tightened, but he didn't reach for the gun I knew he carried. You're playing a dangerous game, he said, stepping closer. Vincent doesn't like loose ends. Up close, I saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of years spent in Vincent's shadow. Then why didn't you tie me up in that alley? I shot back. He flinched. Just barely. But it was enough. Get out, he said, his voice rough. Before he finds out you were here. But I didn't move. What's the debt? Elias. Why are you his dog? His eyes darkened. And for a moment, I thought he'd hit me. Instead, he grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the door. You don't get it, do you? He owns me. And if you keep pushing, he'll own you, too. He shoved me into the elevator, but not before I saw the conflict in his face. He wasn't just Vincent's weapon, was a man drowning in his own choices. The doors closed, and I leaned against the wall, my mind racing. Elias Kane. Ex-Special Forces. A debt worth millions. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Back in Brooklyn, I couldn't shake the image of Elias's face, angry. Yes, but also trapped. I pulled up the photo of the document on my phone, staring at the words like they'd tell me his story. Special forces meant discipline. Training. Maybe trauma. The debt meant leverage. Vincent didn't just hire Elias. He bought him. But why? And why let me go? I needed more. I called an old friend. Sarah. A hacker who'd helped me track down a stolen painting once. She wasn't cheap. But she was good. Elias Kane. Ex-military. Tied to Vincent Caldwell. I told her over coffee in a crowded diner. She raised an eyebrow. You're in deep. Jamie. Caldwell's bad news. She promised to dig. But warned me, if this guy's as loyal as you say, he's not your friend. That night, I painted again. Elias's face taking shape with new details, the scar above his eyebrow, the tension in his jaw. Each stroke felt like a question, a plea for him to be more than Vincent's shadow. I was falling for a man I barely knew, a man who'd held a gun to my chest. It was reckless, stupid even, but my heart didn't care. Sarah came through the next day with a thin file on Elias. Not much, she said, sliding it across the table. He's a ghost. Served in Afghanistan. Discharged honorably. Then vanished until he popped up with Caldwell in 2015. No family. No ties. Just that debt you mentioned. Looks like medical bills for someone named Anna Kane. His sister. Mother. I didn't know. But it was a thread to pull. I spent the day tracking down Anna Kane. Public records showed a woman by that name. Deceased. Buried in a small cemetery upstate. Elias's mother. I guessed. Based on the dates. The bills must have been hers. Piling up until Vincent swooped in. Offering to pay in exchange for Elias's soul. It made sense. But it also made my chest ache. Elias wasn't a monster, was a man who'd made a deal with one. I went to the cemetery. A quiet place with rows of modest headstones. Anna's was simple. Just her name and dates. I stood there, wondering what Elias felt when he visited. If he visited. I'm not giving up. I whispered, as if she could hear me. I'll get him out. It was a promise to a ghost. But it felt real. When I got home, another note was waiting. Cemetery was a bad move. Meet me. Midnight. Pier 17. No signature. But I knew it was Elias. My heart raced fear. Yes. But also something else. Hope. He was reaching out. Risking Vincent's wrath. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. The city's pulse matching my own. Tonight, I'd face Elias. Not as a threat, but as a man. And maybe, just maybe, I'd find the truth. Pier 17 was a ghost town at midnight. The East River lapping against the docks. The city's skyline a distant glow. I stood under a rusted lamppost. My breath visible in the cold. Waiting for Elias. His note had been a lifeline, but also a risk. Was he here to warn me? Help me? Or finish what he started? He appeared like a shadow. His black coat blending with the night. You don't listen, do you? Elias said. His voice low. Almost drowned by the river's murmur. His eyes were sharp. But there was something new worry. Maybe. Or guilt. I had to see you, I said, stepping closer. You're not just Vincent's dog. I know about Anna. His face hardened, but he didn't deny it. You're digging your own grave. Jamie. He glanced around, as if expecting Vincent's men to emerge from the dark. Anna was my mother. Cancer. Vincent paid the bills when I had nothing. Now I owe him everything. His voice cracked, just enough to show the weight he carried. I wanted to reach out, to touch him, but the space between us felt like a minefield. Why let me go that night? I asked, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. He looked away, toward the river, his silence louder than words. Finally, he said, because you're not like him. You're real. It wasn't a confession of love, but it was close enough to make my heart race. Elias wasn't free, but he wanted to be. And that want, that spark, was something Vincent couldn't control. We stood there, the city's hum a backdrop to our fragile truce. He'll kill you if you don't marry him, Elias said, his eyes meeting mine. Or he'll make me do it. The words hung heavy, but I saw the truth in his gaze. He didn't want to. Not then. Not now. Then help me, I said, reckless but sure. Help me stop him. Elias laughed. A bitter sound. You think you can stop Vincent Caldwell? He owns half the city cops. Judges. You name it. But he didn't say no. Instead, he handed me a flash drive. This is all I can give you. Proof of what he's done. Deals. Bribes. Worse. But if you use it, you're a dead man. I took it, my fingers brushing his. A spark passing between us. I'm already a dead man, I said. Might as well go down fighting. He didn't argue. Instead, he stepped closer, his breath warm against the cold night air. You're braver than I am, he said, so quiet I almost missed it. Then he was gone, vanishing into the dark like he'd never been there. I clutched the flash drive, my only weapon against Vincent's empire. Back home, I plugged it into my laptop, my heart pounding as files loaded contracts, emails, recordings. Vincent wasn't just a businessman. He was a kingpin, his wealth built on lies and blood. One file stood out, a video of Vincent meeting a man in a warehouse, discussing a problem that needed to disappear. The man's face was blurry, but Vincent's voice was clear. Cold. Ordering a hit. My stomach churned. This was bigger than me. Bigger than Elias. If I leaked this, Vincent's empire would crumble, but so would my life. I didn't sleep that night. I painted instead. Elias's face again, but this time with a spark of hope in his eyes. I was falling for him. Not just the man in the alley, but the one who'd risked everything to give me that flash drive. He was trapped, but he was fighting, too. I had to believe we could do this together. The next morning, Sarah called. I dug deeper into Elias. She said, he's not just muscle. Vincent trusts him with everything, his secrets, his dirty work. But there's chatter. Elias has been sloppy lately, missing meetings, leaving loose ends. Like you. My heart skipped. Elias was slipping, and Vincent would notice. I had to move fast. I met Sarah at a crowded coffee shop, the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. This could take him down, I said, sliding it to her. She nodded, her face grim. It could take you down, too. You sure about this? I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Do it. Leak it anonymously. Everywhere. She didn't ask twice. Just took the drive and left. That night, I waited for the fallout. My phone buzzed. Vincent again. You think you're clever, he said, his voice icy. You have no idea what you've started. I hung up, my hands shaking. The news hadn't broken yet, but it would. And when it did, Vincent would come for me. I needed Elias, but I didn't know where to find him. I went back to Pier 17, hoping he'd show. The docks were empty, the river silent. Then I saw him, leaning against a pillar, his face half lit by the moon. You used it, didn't you? He said. No anger. Just resignation. I nodded. I had to. He stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the fear in his eyes. Then we're both dead, he said. But he didn't walk away. Instead, he grabbed my hand. His grip tight. Desperate. Run with me, Jamie. Now. I froze. My heart torn. Run. And we'd be fugitives. Stay. And we'd face Vincent's wrath. But in that moment, with Elias's hand in mine, I knew my choice. Okay, I whispered. Let's go. Elias's hand was warm in mine, a lifeline in the dark as we fled Pier 17. The city's lights blurred past us, a kaleidoscope of danger and possibility. We didn't have a plan, just a shared pulse of defiance against Vincent's empire. We ended up in a rundown motel on the edge of Queens, the kind of place that didn't ask for ID. Elias locked the door, his movements sharp, practiced. We can't stay long, he said, checking the window. Vincent's men are already looking. I nodded, my heart still racing from our escape. The flash drive's contents were out now. Sarah had leaked them to every major news outlet. By morning, Vincent's name would be plastered across headlines, his empire cracking under the weight of his crimes. I sat on the sagging bed, watching Elias pace. Why are you doing this? I asked. You could have stayed with him. Safe. He stopped, his eyes meeting mine, raw and unguarded. Because I'm tired of being his shadow, he said. And because of you. My breath caught. It wasn't a love song, but it was honest. And that was enough. He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of him. Tell me about Anna, I said, needing to understand the man who'd risked everything. He hesitated, then spoke, his voice low. She was all I had. Dad left when I was a kid. And Mom, she fought cancer for years. I was in the army when it got bad. Couldn't afford the bills. Vincent offered to pay, but it wasn't charity. He wanted a soldier. His fists clenched, the scars on his knuckles stark in the dim light. I've been paying him back ever since. I reached for his hand, my fingers brushing his scars. You're not his anymore, I said. He didn't pull away, but his eyes were haunted. I don't know how to be anything else, he admitted. I leaned closer, my heart pounding. You'll figure it out. We both will. The moment hung between us, fragile and electric. Then he kissed me, fierce and desperate, like he was drowning and I was air. I kissed him back, my hands in his hair, the world narrowing to just us. It wasn't love not yet, but it was need, raw and real, a promise that we weren't alone. We pulled apart when his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He checked it, his face grim. It started, he said, showing me a news alert. Caldwell Enterprises CEO linked to criminal underworld. The video from the flash drive was everywhere. Vincent's voice undeniable. Elias turned off the phone. He'll come for us now, he said. Hard. We needed a plan. But first, we needed to survive the night. Elias had contacts, old army buddies, people Vincent didn't own. He made calls, his voice clipped, arranging a safe house upstate. We leave at dawn, he said. I nodded, but my mind was on the flash drive. It was a weapon, but not enough. Vincent was too powerful, too connected. We needed more. I pulled out my sketchbook, sketching Elias as he worked. his focus a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. "What are you drawing?" he asked, glancing over. I showed him a rough sketch of us, standing together against a city on fire. He smiled. A rare, real smile. "Your trouble, Jamie Carter," he said, but there was warmth in it. At dawn, we left the motel, blending into the early morning crowd. Elias drove, his eyes scanning for tails. I clutched my sketchbook, the only thing grounding me. We were halfway to the safe house when my phone buzzed a text from Sarah. "Vincent's on the move. He knows about the leak. Be careful." My stomach dropped. Elias saw my face and pressed the gas harder. The safe house was a cabin in the Catskills, hidden in the woods. Elias's contact, a grizzled ex-soldier named Mike, greeted us with a nod. "You're hot," he said, handing Elias a burner phone. "Caldwell's got people everywhere." Mike gave us food, clothes, and a warning: lay low. He's not just angry, he's desperate. Inside the cabin, Elias and I sat by a crackling fire, the weight of our choices settling in. "What happens when he finds us?" I asked. Elias stared into the flames. "He won't stop until he's got he's gone." I nodded, my hand finding his. "Then we make sure he's gone." We spent the day planning. Mike had connections to a journalist who could amplify the leak, but we needed more evidence. Elias knew Vincent's secrets offshore accounts. Hidden deals, but getting them meant going back to the city. Back to Vincent's world. It was suicide, but so was waiting. That night, we lay together on a narrow cot. Not speaking, just holding on. His heartbeat was steady against my chest, a reminder that we were alive. Fighting. "I'm glad it's you," he whispered, his voice raw. I didn't answer, just held him tighter. For the first time, I wasn't just fighting Vincent. I was fighting for us. The Catskills safe house felt like a pause, a breath before the plunge. Elias and I knew we couldn't stay. Vincent's reach was long, and his desperation was a wildfire. By morning, we were back in the car, heading to New York, the city a looming threat on the horizon. Elias drove in silence, his hands tight on the wheel. I watched him, memorizing the lines of his face, the way his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "You don't have to do this," I said, breaking the quiet. "You could walk away." He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. "And leave you to face him alone." Not a chance. My chest tightened. Elias wasn't just fighting for freedom, was fighting for me. Our plan was reckless. Break into Vincent's private server at his penthouse, download proof of his offshore accounts, and hand it to Mike's journalist contact. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. The news was already buzzing with the first leak, but Vincent was spinning it, his PR machine in overdrive. We needed something undeniable. We reached the city at dusk, the skyline a jagged promise of danger. Elias parked in an alley near Vincent's building, a fortress of glass and steel. "Stay close," he said, handing me a cap to hide my face. We slipped through a service entrance, Elias moving like he'd done this 100 times. He probably had. The penthouse was on the 60th floor, accessible only by a private elevator. Elias had a keycard stolen, he said, from a disgruntled ex-employee. The elevator ride was silent, the air thick with tension. When the doors opened, Vincent's penthouse was dark, the city's lights sparkling through the windows. "His server's in the study," Elias whispered, leading the way. The study was a shrine to Vincent's ego awards. Photos, my own mural on the wall, I froze, seeing it. The colors mocking me. I'd painted it with hope, not knowing it would trap me. Elias hacked the server with a device Mike had given him, his fingers steady despite the stakes. 5 minutes, he said, eyes on the screen. I stood guard, my heart pounding, every creak of the building sounding like footsteps. Then the lights snapped on, and Vincent's voice cut through the silence. You disappoint me, Elias. He stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men with guns. Vincent was calm, his suit impeccable, but his eyes were ice. And you, Jamie, he said, turning to me. I offered you the world, and you chose this. He gestured at Elias, disgust in his voice. I stepped forward, defiant. I chose freedom. Vincent laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Freedom. You think you can outrun me? He nodded to his men, who moved toward us. Elias was faster, drawing his gun, his body shielding mine. Let him go, Vincent, he said, his voice steady. This is between you and me. Vincent's smile was venomous. You're nothing without me, Elias. You think you can walk away from your debt? From her. He meant Anna, and I saw the blow land in Elias's eyes. But he didn't waver. I'm done, he said. And so are you. The standoff lasted seconds, but it felt like hours. Then one of Vincent's men lunged, and chaos erupted. Elias fired, hitting the man in the shoulder, and I dove for cover behind the desk. Gunshots echoed, glass shattered, and I heard Vincent shout, "Don't kill them yet." Elias grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the elevator. Run, he yelled, firing back to keep Vincent's men at bay. We made it to the elevator, the doors closing just as bullets hit the metal. Elias was bleeding, a gash on his arm, but he waved off my concern. We got the data, he said, holding up the device. Now we get out. The elevator hit the ground floor, and we ran, the city swallowing us into its chaos. We reached Mike's safe house in Harlem, a cramped apartment above a bodega. Mike was waiting, his face grim as he bandaged Elias's arm. You stirred the hornet's nest, he said, taking the device. This better be worth it. It was bank records, emails, proof of Vincent's money laundering. Enough to bury him. But Vincent wasn't done. My phone buzzed with a video call, his face filling the screen. You think you've won, he said, his voice calm but deadly. Check the news. I opened my laptop, my heart sinking. A headline screamed, Brooklyn artist linked to Caldwell scandal. My name, my face, plastered everywhere, framed as Vincent's accomplice. He'd turned the tables, and I was the villain now. Elias grabbed my hand, his grip steady. We'll fix this, he said. Together. I nodded, but fear gnawed at me. Vincent had the world believing I was guilty, and he was still out there, hunting us. We had the evidence, but we needed to survive long enough to use it. The Harlem safe house was a cage, the city's pulse a reminder of Vincent's reach. My face was on every news channel, branded a traitor, a criminal, while Vincent played the victim. Elias and I had the evidence to destroy him, but we were running out of time. Mike's journalist contact, Rachel, met us at the safe house. Her laptop opened to a draft expose. This is dynamite, she said, scrolling through the server data. Offshore accounts, bribes, a murder-for-hire plot. It's enough to lock Caldwell up for life. But she hesitated. You're radioactive. Jamie, if I publish this with your name attached, no one will believe it. Elias nodded, his jaw tight. Then don't use his name. Make it anonymous. Rachel agreed. But we needed a way to get the story out without Vincent's PR machine burying it. We need a platform he can't control, I said, my mind racing. Elias suggested the dark web, where leaks couldn't be traced. Mike knew a guy, a hacker named Leo, who could help. We set up a meet at a crowded subway station, blending into the rush hour chaos. Leo was a wiry kid with a laptop bag and a paranoid streak. You're hot, he said, eyeing us. Caldwell's got eyes everywhere. He agreed to upload the data to a secure site, but only if we move fast. Once this goes live, you're ghosts, he warned. No going back. Elias and I exchanged a look. We'd already crossed that line. Back at the safe house, Rachel worked on the story while Leo prepped the upload. Elias and I sat in the corner, his hand on mine, grounding me. I'm sorry, I said, my voice low. I dragged you into this. He shook his head, his eyes fierce. I chose this. Jamie. For the first time in years, I chose. The upload went live at midnight, the data spreading like wildfire across underground forums. By morning, Rachel's story hit, backed by the server files. The headlines shifted, Caldwell's empire built on crime. Vincent's stock plummeted, his allies scrambling to distance themselves. But he wasn't done. A text came through on Elias's burner phone. You can't hide forever. We knew he'd come for us. Mike had a plan to get us out of the country. New identities. A fresh start. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I want him to see me, I said, my voice steady. I want him to know he didn't win. Elias frowned. But he didn't argue. He knew what it meant to fight for your soul. We set a trap, using Vincent's ego against him. Rachel leaked a fake story that we were hiding in a warehouse in Brooklyn, knowing he'd send his men. Elias and Mike rigged the place with cameras, ready to catch Vincent in the act. I was the bait, standing in the open, my heart pounding as headlights cut through the dark. Vincent arrived alone, his face a mask of rage. You think you can ruin me? He spat, stepping closer. You're nothing. Jamie. A pawn. I held my ground. Elias hidden in the shadows, recording every word. I'm not your pawn, I said. And you're not a king anymore. He lunged, but Elias was faster, tackling him to the ground. Mike's team moved in, restraining Vincent as the cameras rolled. His screams echoed as they dragged him away, his empire crumbling in real time. The video hit the internet hours later, Vincent's confession sealing his fate. Elias and I slipped away, the city's chaos fading behind us. We didn't speak, just held hands, the weight of our fight lifting with each step. We were free, but freedom came with a cost. My art, my name, my life in New York, it was gone. But I had Elias, and that was enough. We boarded a bus to nowhere, just another couple in the crowd. I pulled out my sketchbook, drawing Elias's face, his eyes soft now, free of Vincent's shadow. What now? I asked, my pencil pausing. He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen. We live, he said. For us. The bus rumbled through the night, carrying Elias and me away from New York's chaos. Vincent was in custody, his empire shattered, but the scars he left lingered. My name was clear now. The truth out. But I wasn't the same Jamie who'd laughed off a billionaire's proposal months ago. We ended up in a small town in Vermont. A place with more trees than people. Mike's contacts had set us up with a cabin. A temporary home until we figured out what came next. Elias was different here. Lighter. Like the weight of Vincent's debt had finally lifted. I caught him smiling more. Small moments when he thought I wasn't looking, chopping wood. Staring at the stars. His guard down for the first time. I painted again. Not for money, but for me. The canvas filled with colors of us, Elias's scars. My defiance. The river where we'd made our stand. "You're good at this," he said one night, watching me work. I laughed, brushing paint off my hands. "You're biased." He kissed me, soft and sure. And I knew this was what I'd fought for, not just survival, but a life where love wasn't a transaction. The news followed us, even in Vermont. Vincent's trial was a circus. His crimes laid bare for the world. Rachel's story won awards. And she sent us a letter. "You two changed everything. Stay safe." I framed it. A reminder that we'd done something bigger than ourselves. But the cost was real. I couldn't go back to New York. Not yet. My art was tainted by the scandal. My name a footnote in Vincent's downfall. Elias struggled, too. He'd been Vincent's shadow for so long. He didn't know how to live in the light. Some nights, he woke up gasping. Dreams of his mother's hospital bills and Vincent's orders haunting him. I held him, whispering that he was enough. That we were enough. Slowly, he started to believe it. One morning, I found him outside, staring at the mountains. "I want to stay," he said, his voice quiet but sure. "Build something real. With you." My heart swelled. I'd spent my life running from my dad. From poverty. From Vincent. Now, I wanted to stay, too. We started small. I taught art classes at the local community center. My students' messy paintings a joy I hadn't expected. Elias worked with a carpenter, learning to build with his hands, not destroy. We weren't rich, but we were free, and that was worth more than Vincent's billions. One night, under a sky full of stars, I showed Elias a new painting, a portrait of us, standing together. The city a distant memory. "It's us," I said, my voice thick with emotion. He pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. "It's more than I ever thought I'd have," he said. The world moved on, but we stayed, building a life from the ashes of Vincent's empire. Love wasn't easy, it was messy, raw, full of scars and second chances. But it was ours. And as I painted our story, stroke by stroke, I knew we'd won. Not just against Vincent, but for each other. For the truth. For a future neither of us had dared to dream.